So to begin with, your position on this, you accept that these powers are needed, for example, to make sure people that test positive to COVID-19 properly isolate. You're just arguing over the time, how long this is going to be?
Well, we've got a number of concerns with what Daniel Andrews is proposing, principally, as you say, Tom, with the 12-month extension. The current state of emergency legislation allows the state of emergency to last for a maximum of 6 months. It has a maximum time for a reason. This legislation gives so much power to the Chief Health Officer and other unelected officials. It's time that the Parliament was included in this process and Victorians had democracy restored.
So what are you calling for specifically? Would you grant, for example, 3-month extension?
Well, we'll meet as a party room to consider that. We've only just received the legislation about an hour ago, but 12 months is simply unacceptable. At a time when numbers of the virus are coming down in Victoria, Victorians want to know what the roadmap is back to normality, back for small businesses. You know, the business community is doing it so tough, and as a result, millions of Victorians that rely on the small businesses and the larger businesses in Victoria don't have any certainty. When will the lockdown be ended? When will business be able to reopen? When will people be able to get back their lives? Daniel Andrews wants to extend this centralisation of power. It appears to me that he's drunk on this power and he doesn't want Victorians to get back to normality. It's simply unacceptable. 12 months is far...
What do you base on when you say he doesn't want Victorians to get back to reality? What are you basing that on?
He is proposing a 12-month extension of the current state of emergency powers. This is unprecedented in Victoria's history. Yes, there needs to be a step down from the current stage 4 restrictions. The opposition is prepared to engage and work with the government on what that looks like. But to give a carte blanche 12-month extension is simply unacceptable. The proposed legislation...
By saying that he doesn't want Australians to get back to reality, you're saying that he wants people to be in lockdown beyond reasons for the pandemic. That's what you're saying.
Well, what I'm saying is that the proposed legislative changes go too far, and the Victorians want to see the Victorian Parliament sitting. They want these matters resolved in a clear way and a way out of this current arrangements to be provided by the government. What is the path forward for Victorians?
Right. But just the intent you mentioned there, I mean, there's been a lot of criticism, of course, and a lot of that's been aired on Sky News, for example, around hotel quarantine, how that's been managed. When you say he doesn't want Victorians to get back to reality, what are you basing that on?
What I'm saying is that we need the government to articulate a clear pathway forward so that we can have the certainty, business, employees, community groups can have some certainty and some understanding of what the plan is to return normality to Victorians. And yes, things may change. There may be spikes. There may be changes in the number of infections. But surely Victorians deserve to know what the government's plan is to return to some sort of normality. The current lockdowns is taking a huge toll on the mental health of so many people, on the financial health of so many people. And the least the government can do in response is to be open and transparent about its plans to return to some sort of normality. Granting a 12-month extension... Granting a 12-month extension to the...
The 12-month extension is the possibility to use that power. It doesn't mean, for example, level 4 goes on. No one's imagining that goes on for those 12 months. This is just the power to do that. That's important to clarify as well for people out there that might be worried this somehow means lockdown for 12 months. It doesn't, does it?
Well, we don't know what it looks like, because what the Premier is asking the Parliament to do is give a leave pass to him and the Chief Health Officer to make these decisions. And with the greatest respect to the Chief Health Officer, he's not an elected official. The Premier needs to bring Victorians with him. We need to understand what the plan is.
Are you, just on the Chief Health Officer then, are you worried he'll be too conservative, that be concerned that, you know, any single case will be blamed on him and he'll urge the Premier to keep the state in lockdown, or the city in particular in lockdown, longer than is necessary?
I've got no issue with the Chief Health Officer, but the fundamental point is that the Parliament should be making these decisions. We shouldn't be just handing over these powers to the Premier and some unelected officials. The Parliament must be included, and the lockdown or the additional extension of these powers should be for the shortest possible time.
When you say the Parliament to make the decision, are you talking about actual decisions on stage 4, stage 3, whatever it might be? Every other jurisdiction right now in Australia, it's not the Parliament making the decision, is it? It's the leaders with the health authorities.
The problem, Tom, is the 12-month proposed extension hands over to the government these powers for such a long period of time. What we should be considering is shorter extensions of these powers, and the case be made by the government about why they are necessary. The people in the Parliament
can I ask this as well?
Go ahead.
So just nearly out of time, but so when you talk about the path out of here, the indication in terms of lockdown is that measures might stay in place, relatively, I suppose, harsh ones, until cases even hit single figures, that is daily new cases, not the cumulative cases. These are judging from comments from authorities. Is that fair enough? I mean, it's been such a hard phase 2. You wouldn't want a phase 3 of this in Victoria, would you?
No, of course we wouldn't. But I suppose what we'd like the opportunity, though, is to debate these issues, discuss these issues, have some input from members of the community and other health experts about these issues. That's not to second-guess the Chief Health Officer, but it's about being transparent and open with Victorians.
Daniel Andrews has said this week he's not going anywhere. He's elected until 2022 and he'll stay in the job until then. What's your response to that?
Look, that's a matter for the Labor Party. They elect their leader, and that's a matter for them.
You have no view whatsoever?
Well, I think ultimately the frustration Victorians have with the hotel quarantine fiasco is that no one has been held accountable. No one has said, I was responsible for these decisions. It's frustrating, and it's not within the spirit of our Westminster Parliament, our democracy in Victoria and Australia. The doctrine of ministerial responsibility seems to be out the window under the Andrews government.
All right.